Okay, fair enough. Though, Mr. Plus, I don't think we've seen anything yet that tells us what these decks are, have we?
No, we're about to get our first reveal right now, it seems. So, oh wait, never mind.
Okay.
Pause. We want to build a little bit more suspense. Hold on.
I don't
We've
understand what the judges are like trying to. Like they
we've
haven't
kept you
started
waiting
anything.
this long. You might as well.
True. That is wild. Okay, there's people in chat saying that they might be a former
StarCraft
StarCraft
2.
2 pro. That's interesting.
Wow, cool.
Oh, it is Draven, Mr. Plus.
Yeah, I think we said his name to one too many times. He's got that Beetlejuice effect, but at least we get
Hey.
something different on the opposite side of the table. We get Irelia sporting that Lunar New Year alternate art that looks so nice. And of course, this does mean there is chaos on both sides of the table, so expect a lot of bouncing and a lot of tricky spells being slung.
Yeah. Now, from what I understand, so first of all, it looks like we've got Zon Warrens as
Ooh.
the battlefield of choice from Draven, which instantly to me suggests Miracle. And we've got Dreaming Tree from Irelia, very, very common sort of starting matchup, starting battlefield from her. And correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I understand, like Irelia was originally considered a counter to Draven.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether or not the Irelia deck is like favored necessarily into a miracle variant, especially if this is a detonate variant. We'll see
True.
rather shortly, but I know that from personal experience, this matchup can go a little bit wonky depending on whether or not the Draven has an answer to remove the Irelia rather quickly. But I think if we are seeing a detonate version of Draven, that could actually be a little bit easier should they be willing to cast that detonate their opponent's way to get
Yeah.
rid of those GAs and Zanyas and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think it's going to be kind of interesting as well because I don't think we've actually seen a detonate so far on in the national opens here in China. It's just been we've seen Miracle, we've seen mid range, but I don't think we've actually seen a detonate. I actually don't know if it's caught on in China. Like I assumed it would have, or they've been exposed to it, but so far it's not been on stream.
Yeah, and we saw at the beginning of the broadcast today, they had put up a Detonate Draven list on screen, and Plus and I had thought that meant that we were going to see that on the feature table, which
Yeah,
evidently was not the case. But perhaps that is what that was showcasing that that deck is present, did make it to day
hmm
2, and is one of the front runners for the Draven pilots present here today. So hopefully we might see their take on it going forward, but for now we'll have to see which version we have here. No detonates in sight so far, but a spinning axe, Ezreal, and 2 cards that I could not see through our left player's hand.
yeah, kind of covered by his hand there. But the China production has been very good about generally just showing us the player's hands, so I'm sure that information will be able or will come through. Now, I think Draven is got the start of that one. Not quite sure, but generally whoever shows their battlefield first goes first. So curious to see how this ends up going. We do have the start, and okay, it's actually going to be the Irelia player who's going to get the start on this one.
All right, so gonna probably just see this GA or Lonely Poro. Looks like it'll be the Lonely Poro coming out, and very cool to know that based on confirmations from chat, this is a former
Yeah.
StarCraft 2 pro player. So that's pretty cool to see somebody from a totally unrelated avenue come into the Riftbound scene and make a big splash, come in day 2 in this Chinese regional or national rather.
Yeah, I guess I can see the transfer over StarCraft. A lot of RTSs often require a lot of strategic thinking, and trading card games feels like an adjacent to that. Now, the Lonely Portal, we've been seeing a little bit more of it. I know that a lot of arrows actually don't run the Lonely Portal, but I kind of like the idea of just having it. It's a good 2-drop. It replaces itself, and also it's just great into order decks as well. So you can always side out the Lonely Portals later, but having it to deal with potential calls early can be very helpful.
And we see a sneaky deckhand in hand as well, also, which
Wow.
means this is a variant of Irelia that is looking to put on the pressure early and
hmm
kind of just go pedal to the metal and try to get an early point lead as the sneaky deckhand does come out to the Dreaming Tree and score us up to 2. Interestingly enough, the discard off the Zon Warrens was actually the Guardian
Yeah.
Angel, so having another one in hand obviously means that they still have access to the card, but usually in Irelia decks, all of these revive effects are at a premium to keep your Irelia alive, but in this case, willing to get rid of one in favor of drawing a new card and having it be a Defiant Dance, the signature spell that has been so pivotal to Irelia's success.
And to be fair to the Irelia player, she also has another GA in hand too. So it might be a case of just saying, okay, I don't need the duplicates right now. Let's just get one out of the way. And if we're playing a quick variant like this, it's going to work. So Defiant Dance to back up the sneaky deckhand, and that I think that was part of the confidence of kind of playing those two fast units early. Now, unfortunately for her, we did see the Spinning Axe come through for the Draven player. So is he? Yep, he's just going to drop it and should be able to win combat there. It's 5-4.
Yeah, very aggressive play line from our Aurelia player to
Mm-hmm.
go in for this double conquer and then immediately sacrifice a rune for a Defiant Dance on defense to try and force the Draven to have the answer, which of course, unfortunately, he did. Also, though, we get to draw a card because of the Dreaming Tree off of that Defiant Dance, so not a complete waste, even though we did lose the combat. At least replacing the card with the draw will try to keep us at hand parity with the Draven player after getting a draw from that combat win.
See the Traveling Merchant being played by the Draven as well. And now Lonely Poro, I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of leave it up there. If you can trade one for one with the Traveling Merchant, it's kind of worth. The card draw is good as well. But having that Spinning Axe come out so early, I feel like just changes the game plan from the Irelia. If you wanted to play aggressively and sneak stuff on, well, that doesn't work anymore when you've got a 7 might unit that's going to be just swinging around, and you kind of got to build up for the Irelia. She's going to be up there, no protection, but
Yeah.
Draven, generally speaking, doesn't usually have the Falling Star in main.
Yeah, unfortunately for our Draven player, not having that access to that in main and in hand right now, because more oftentimes than not, that it can be just a blowout to answer that Aurelia before it has any
Mhm.
protection on board. But this Aurelia player willing to take that gamble, and it will look like it is going to pay off, as there is not a single spell at this Draven's disposal that can take care of that right now. But deploying the Ezreal Prodigy to the board, gonna
Ooh.
discard Fizz to draw two. Maybe we find it, and nothing looking like just another Spinning Axe and a stacked deck. So could go digging with a stacked deck, but like you said, more than likely we're not maining that Falling Star anyways. So let's see if he just opts to deploy another unit to the board instead.
Yeah, it looks like the only unit it has in hand is actually the Tide Turner. Second from the left there. He's still got the Traveling Merchant, and with Zon Warren's open as well, potentially discard to draw to if he's looking and cycling for something particular. Now, I know Mr. Plus, you said that you're more of a mid-range Draven, but I'm curious, what are you looking for right now to potentially deal with this Irelia?
Yeah, I mean, in the Miracle deck, it's a little bit tough because you're not really running anything to answer it outright. Usually, you're just trying to score enough points that you can push in and deploy a rebuke to
Okay.
get across the finish line towards the end. But in the early game, there's not a lot that you can do to really answer it, and you're just trying to establish boards. So more than likely just going to be digging for cards like we see here, a battering ram, and just start building up that board so that if the Aurelia player does become confident enough to push up their Aurelia and try to hold a battlefield, they might be able to just run it over with a sheer mass amount of units.
Okay. Interestingly enough, we did see the battering ram in hand. There have been a couple cards played already this turn, but the Driven player actually opted for it looks like the Ezreal. So does he want to go digging even more? And again, it goes back to the question of like, what are you looking for, right? Like you said, there's not anything specific at this time. It feels like, right? So, fight or flight still available. Gonna use that seal to actually hide it under the Noxus Hopeful, which I think is a very interesting choice there. You can use it to kind of to bring your Noxus Hopeful with the Spinning Axe back to safety. You trigger the Dreaming Tree as well, or you could just see if the Irelia is even strong enough to try and swing up.
Yeah, very heads up play to just use your seal that you have there to hide the fight or flight and give yourself essentially a free draw one by playing it onto your Noxus Hopeful. But as you said, being at 7 might, it actually is a tall enough order for the Irelia to have to invest some resources to be able to get over it in the first place. So might end up being able to save that for a future time, as Irelia is now just going to attack the Traveling Merchant over at Zon Warrens instead.
Now there was another spinning axe in hand for Draven, but I feel like that that would be a lot invested to keep a traveling merchant, which has kind of done its job, alive. And not to mention, Irelia still has all 7 of her runes up and available. So yeah, just gonna let the traveling merchant go down. That's not the key unit that you want to keep alive, and just like that, Irelia, gonna be ever so slightly ahead in this race for points.
Discarding the charm off of the Conquer effect of Zon Warrens. Opting not to charm the Ezreal up for a free kill, maybe is a little bit worried about the spinning axe, although now we are seeing the Guardian Angel get deployed and equipped, which of course will trigger Aurelia's +1 buff. Gonna see whether or not this Irelia player wants to tap their leader and ready the Irelia. Looks like they have foregone that decision, but we are going to now see the charm that was mentioned. It looks like there was a little bit of redundancy yet again, so had 2 charms in hand, opted to discard 1, and now is going to charm, I think, the Ezreal up. Maybe thinking about it, the potential of charming the Noxus Hopeful and
Yeah.
forcing that hidden card away.
I mean, right now Irelia she's at 6-7. Okay. But
Yes.
here's the problem. Even if okay, so he's just doing it for the card draw, yeah, because it's gonna chase anyways. So yeah, wait, is my math off? That's 7, right? So they trade and you just lose the GA. Is that what she's looking for?
The on guard
Okay.
there is gonna make this a open and shut case an easy win for our Aurelia, as that is going to net a +3, which of course we could see answered by the spinning axe here, but there is still yet another Defiant Dance in hand. So should he opt to force the Defiant Dance out of hand by deploying the spinning axe, it would end up meaning both spinning axes are destined for the trash. So
Yep.
potentially opting to just let this go, and yeah, that will be the case. Going to say that this spinning axe will be more valuable going forward when we need it to get over this massive Aurelia hump.
And just like that, having cleared off the other field by the Irelia player there, the Lonely Portal can move up, score ahead, up to 5. Very, very good, comfortable position for the Irelia. And for the Draven, it's such a tough call as well, right? You see those 3 runes up, it's still Irelia's turn. If you try and, force anything, you have to assume that the Irelia still has some sort of trap in hand, and we know that's going to be a Defiant Dance, so I think it's the right call. Now, preemptive flash to come through from Irelia, she doesn't even want to give Draven any sort of combat options, any more card draw than he's already going to get.
Exactly, and that's a beautiful heads-up play, because we saw our Draven player's hand dwindling rather quickly down to only 4 cards in hand now after drawing for turn, but here's where the plussing starts to begin as the first called shot of the game is deployed. Seeing what we're going to grab off of this double look at 2. Another called shot picked up.
Yeah, and a rebuke as well. And normally I like the rebuke pickup, but against the Irelia with the deflect cost as well, it gets really expensive. And I feel like Draven's often end up fighting against their rune count more than anything else. Now, I don't believe he's got the battering ram in hand, so he's digging and digging. He threw away a Rasa earlier as well. He's got the Bushwhack to accelerate units, but he just doesn't have units to play.
And now we're seeing him decide between a stack deck and what looked to be maybe a Noxus Hopeful. I can't see the card in the back, but looking for more options to start finding a way to build up a board that can actually threaten this Aurelia, as the 5-3 lead is a little foreboding with both of its units in the back row safe and sound from any type of combat that this Miracle Draven is looking to engineer. Again, this is just really well crafted by the Irelia player to go ahead and, like you said, preemptively play the flash, knowing that this Draven's going to try to push in and force a combat win. And now we see the scrap heap discarded off of the Zon Warren's Conquer. Going to get that draw too, and look at that. The hand is already back to a very healthy state for our Draven player, up to 7 cards in hand after being down to only 2 just a few moments ago, it felt like.
You know, and I feel like that just goes to say, for those of you all in chat who are kind of debating whether or not it's called shot or Draven that's the issue. Well, you can see that it's not even Draven. He's not getting the combat draws. This is just off the called shots, off just all the purple. The Ezreals actually, specifically with the called shots come through. Now we do see the seal actually picked up as well. It's worth noting that so far all the seals have not, like he hasn't been able to use the seals to pay for the seals. He's actually had to recycle power to get these seals onto the board, and that's one of the reasons why Draven, you know, is, I won't say he's broke, because Irelia is also struggling with the rune count as well, but it's what's keeping them both in the sort of mid-range when it comes to the rune count. Now Irelia is readied, only Poro is readied. We know there's a rebuke in hand. If you have the Irelia, you've got to be thinking, okay, 2 runes up. That's all the tricks that Draven has: fight or flight, pardon me, rebuke, or spinning axes.
Yeah, and I think our Irelia player is probably more than willing to allow this Draven player to neg 3 purple runes to pay through the deflect of this Irelia, should they want to get this rebuke out this early. And from there, they can even pivot to the Stellacorn Herder plan, as we see the Stellacorn in hand and a Boots of Swiftness at the ready. So very quickly, we could start to see the hand come back for our Irelia player as well, if they can get this Stellacorn moving and drawing them a bunch of cards of their own.
Okay, Spinning Axe will get the Ezreal up to 6. So it's a 6-6 right now, but I've got to imagine Defiant Dance comes down.
Yeah, it just seems like it is more than likely going to be necessary here to finish off this Ezreal, and not only that, get rid of the second and probably last Spinning Axes. More often than not, these Miracle Draven lists only play a maximum of 2 copies. So not having to worry about any Spinning Axes anymore going forward will be a huge boon for our Irelia player, knowing that basically all they have to worry about is FOF and Rebuke.
Yeah, and that's actually going to be really costly for the Draven player. The fact that he had to use the Ezreal to do that, and now Ezreal is off the board. We know that he picked up a hard bargain earlier, but with Ezreal gone, he's going to have to pay the full repeat cost. And again, you've got to assume there's some sort of combat tricks to come through from the Irelia side of things. So you really wanted to have that hard bargain for whatever spell was going to come out, whether it be another Defiant Dance, whether it be a Discipline, or as we know, most likely the Fight or Flight that she has in hand.
And we are actually seeing the Irelia player elect to utilize the Irelia Legend ability to restand the Irelia as well, giving it another +1 and enabling it to move back to safety and base, as they currently don't have any means of protecting it. But let's see what they choose to discard here off of the Zon Warren's Conquer, having only 3 cards to choose from. More than likely doesn't want to get rid of their Boots of Swiftness, but it might just be what they have to do, because the Stellacorn Herder is probably their only avenue back into getting a hand back. But no, Stellacorn is actually the choice.
Yeah, and I kind of like that decision there, because you can always now attach the Boots of Swiftness to Irelia. Oh, and then move it over and then hide the Fight or Flight. But that's not the call. It's actually going to be the Lonely Poro moving up and scoring. I guess that's another way to get the card draw, but it will give Draven some card draw as well.
Oh, wow, there we go. An aggressive FOF.
Yeah, I actually really like that. It's the same idea as the earlier Flash.
The Flash,
where,
yeah.
And because you readied up the Irelia, she goes back to base. Once again, Draven is just left there punching the air. There's no fight to be had.
Yeah, I mean, this is just expert navigation from our Irelia player. Obviously well seasoned into this matchup. They know exactly what Draven players are aiming to do, and they're just not letting them do it. And this goes back to something you said just a few moments ago about the immense hatred for Draven being in his ability to draw multiple cards off of his effect. But so far, he hasn't drawn anything off of Draven's legend effect itself. It's all just been because of Ezreal and Called Shot. And that just goes to show that if you know how to navigate around this matchup, you can starve Draven off of those combat victories and deny those extra draws.
Yeah, and this is textbook play from who we assume is Scarlett, piloting this Irelia right now. And folks at home, like, what I really want to highlight too is this is not necessarily the ideal Irelia game or start, right? A lot of times with Irelia, you want like double GA, GA Zonias. Instead, while yes, the Irelia had double GA, she actually opted to just kind of race for those early points as well, and just knowing when to pull back, knowing that Draven doesn't accelerate in those early turns, so you can kind of out tempo, outpace them, and then just starving them from here on out. So now the Draven up to the field, a hidden card. Now, plus I didn't quite catch what that card was. Is it a fight or flight? Do you know, or
I believe so. I don't know that they run any other hidden cards in this match or in this version of the list,
Bushwhack?
unless it would be the bushwhack. Yeah, but you don't often hide the bushwhack. The only other inclusion could be a spicy edge of night or a switcheroo, but again,
Oh.
very uncommon cards to see in this type of list. So probably the FOF, recognizing the fact that the Irelia player rather is on 7 points and is in kill range, so needs to keep that battlefield secure at all costs. And now, looking like there's still 5 runes to play with, but not a whole lot left to play. Probably wants to keep those runes up for defense, as we do see another Rebuke in hand.
And now with the Ezreal being played as well, that hard bargain we were talking about earlier is going to actually be a factor potentially, as the Irelia player needs to swing on both sides to conquer. Can I just say pet peeve as well? I know the judges actually just forced both players to put their to resort their trash piles. I was actually curious why the Irelia player hadn't fanned out, and maybe they have Rasa or Fizz or something, but yeah, I kind of don't really like it that they're forcing them to do that instead of spreading them out where they can actually count the cards.
Yeah, I think overall visual clarity and lack of clutter is probably the only goal they have, and I don't necessarily agree with it like you said, but I'm not completely against it either. I like a nice tidy board, keep everything
That's
in its
fair.
place.
Yep, and I guess they're doing just that now. You can see Irelia really having to calculate the lines. There's a not so fast. Looks like 2 disciplines and a boots of swiftness, but with a hidden card and with 5 runes up for Draven right now, you're probably doing the math saying, okay, 2 combat tricks. I cannot so fast. One of them. What is the other one? And now with Irelia, you can of course ready her up once again, even if it's fight or flight, kind of pushing them back. But a rebuke would certainly complicate matters because all the sort of plus might gets cancelled out when it gets rebuked back to hand.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider here is that should the Irelia player try to push into Zon Warrens multiple times, thanks to something like fight or flight or rebuke being resolved here, that will give the Draven player multiple opportunities to
True.
recycle a red rune and continue to increase this Draven Vanquisher's power, making it harder to get over each subsequent attack. So something that this Irelia player has to consider is what kind of tricks they could have with the 5 runes up. We of course know that 3 of those runes can be utilized on a repeated hard bargain and the last 2 on a rebuke, but Irelia not having any counter spells in their hand of their own. Actually, I just saw a not so fast flash, so we do have the answer for the rebuke here, or the fight or flight should either one come out with the not so fast, but only a single copy of not so fast, and we do have the redundancy of fight or flight plus rebuke and the hard bargain. So more than likely Draven is going to be able to stave off this assault, but not without costing them a fair amount of runes thanks to the deflect on this Irelia.
Yeah, and I actually feel like the Draven player missed a trick a little bit by not using the Draven trigger. So I fully agree with you, Mr. Plus, earlier. If he could get himself up to 8, it complicates matters on the rebuke. But now, because he opted not to do that, that Draven's just going to be a 6 when this Irelia swings back in once again with the not so fast in hand. Let's just see. 2, 4, 5. Oh, there's not going to be enough to stop the rebuke.
Yeah, well, five runes left at their disposal, it looks like, so they can.
Oh, yeah, actually. Wait, it's not so. Okay, so it's 2 for rebuke, and then it's going to be 2, 3
You're
for
right.
not so fast for hard
They're
bargain.
one short. Yeah, because they're gonna require them to pay an extra 4 on this not so fast.
Okay, so there we go.
Yep, repeated hard bargain thanks to Ezreal. So Once again, Ezreal is the actual villain here. Even though Draven is the poster boy, Ezreal is the one enabling this madness as the not so fast is going to get hard bargained away, and now Irelia is bouncing back to the hand, unfortunately.
The mastermind of it all. Now, it doesn't come without cost for the Draven player. He had to deramp, with the
Oh,
rebuke.
but there's a Ride the Wind.
Oh, wait. Oh, that came off the discipline.
Oh.
No shot, right? Okay, wait.
He can equip, or sorry, she can equip all of her gear
Yeah.
to this Poro, and then ride the wind over. Is that enough might? It's 5.
It'd be
Oh,
5
no.
to 6, not just shot.
Yeah, just a
But
little short.
oh, and then the discipline cost too. I think at this point, you just equip the Poro
Yeah.
and just go for the hole, maybe.
She's doing the math. She's like, can I actually get there? But oh wait, there's a second boots of. I mean, we don't. We can just. Oh no, the Irelia effect is already used. We can't stand
Yeah.
the Poro back up. Yeah, trying to find all these clever, creative ways to get there right here, right now. But unfortunately, just gonna have to pass. Interesting turn of events that did set the Draven back in runes a fair amount, back down to only 6 now after charging 2 for the turn. So we'll see how Draven recovers now, being at 6 points after the hold, still has to deal with this lonely Poro.
Yeah, we did see the bushwhack already being picked up, and I believe that was a Rasa that just showed up as well. The trash is probably big enough now to get Rasa out there and swinging. So this Poro, I don't fancy his chances living right now. And this is where things kind of get dicey, right? The Irelia went off to a racing, roaring start, up to 7 points, but now actually has to close things out. And this Draven has to do his math as well, right? You want to minimize how much you're spending so that you've got the combat tricks for the Irelia swing in.
Yeah, we see a gold coming down for the bushwhack. Now some math happening, trying to see how many cards that they can deploy on this turn to make as much use of this bushwhack as possible. Looks like more than enough in the trash for some Ross's, but I don't see any Ross's in hand.
I could have sworn I saw 10 costs. Ross is the only 10
Oh,
cost,
there
right?
is one there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the way they keep shuffling to it can be really hard to track what exactly is coming out. So the 6 might alone with the problem is you're playing around a potential Defiant Dance. We've already seen 2 come through for Irelia, and you just need to make sure you've got enough might. So with the sort of +4 swing and then potentially double on guard would be the worst case scenario. Yeah, they're just bumping everything out right now.
Double battering ram for so the little head shake of woof. That was a lot of cards that just got played, all hasted and ready to come in. A little bit of overkill to send this much might at one sad, lonely little Poro, but we're gonna see the discipline come out regardless to net our Irelia player or draw 2 thanks to the Dreaming Tree and bring this Poro up to 4, which will make it big enough to trade with one of these units.
And it's kind of troubling for Irelia too, because she also deramped very heavily last turn to keep equipping stuff. So she's going to be at 6 runes next turn. You got to hold 2 for Ride the Wind. That's the only way your Irelia kind of comes back into it. And then you need to overcome, what is that, 18 might? Sorry, is that, wait, 5, 5, 2, yeah, 18 might
18.
on the Dreaming Tree. So Irelia base 4, you need 14, which means you need to keep choosing it repeatedly. I even with the card draw, even with that cards in hand, I just don't believe there's enough runes at this point for Irelia to be able to conquer both.
Unfortunately, that does seem to be the case. You're right. It was an issue of runes at the end of the day more than anything else. One more rune was the difference in that deciding turn there that could have won Irelia the game. But now, having only 6 runes to work with, there's just probably not enough gas in the tank to be able to take out both battlefields. 18 might at one and 4 plus a fighter flight at the other. It's just too tall of an order, and Irelia is going to elect to go to game 2.
You know what the saddest part is there, Mr. Plus?
What is that?
She drew a Defy and a Not So Fast as the cards
Defy.
after. So if she had gone either of those, then you don't need to pay the repeat cost. You just play the other one again. So she was off by 1 card. If she had drawn 1 more, if she had 1 more rune, either way, she'd have been able to take it. But instead, Draven takes it. And this is why Draven is so obnoxious. And welcome to the League of Draven.
Yeah. any decks that are enabled to play it. Of course, the only one green has access to without Jax is Sterix Gauge, which is a little bit of a cumbersome cost, being 3 energy and 2 power to get a +3 might at reaction speed. Something that Draven gets for 2 energy and 1 power. So you can see just how powerful the developers view that level of an effect by seeing the adverse costs of it in Sterix Gauge as opposed to the specialization that only Draven has access to with Spinning Axe.
Exactly, just making a signature spell. Unfortunately, they did give the Draven of all people who feels like he didn't really need any extra help. Now, we are into game 2, and for the battlefields for both players is going to be the Obelisk of Power. So, going to be 4 runes for Irelia to start with, 5 for Draven. And we saw yesterday when we did see the Obelisk sort of mirror matchup in terms of battlefield, the game sped up a lot, and it actually tended to favor not so much the Draven side, because Draven Miracle needs trash, and while this speeds up the game, it doesn't speed up how many cards have been used or played necessarily.
Yeah, and we're going to see the 4 energy available to our Irelia player thanks to double Obelisk net them a turn 0 sneaky deckhand score. So opting again to try and speed this game up as much as possible, get those quick points early, and try to get as far ahead as possible before Draven is able to establish a crazy board, as we saw in that final turn of the last game where they deployed 4 or 5 units all at once.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Irelia, it looks like Draven already has kind of pieces of what he's looking for. He's got a battering ram in hand. He's got a spinning axe for some early game plays. He's got an Ezreal and a Tide Turner as well if he wants to, play some sort of just set up a board early potentially to start trading. Because besides the Irelia, in the Irelia deck, there's not a lot of might necessarily, so it's kind of easy to trade early and maybe even force out some of those spells that normally you want to hold to keep your Irelia alive and strong.
Yeah, and the silver lining here for our Irelia player, I guess, is that there is no seal to go with this Ezreal, so just having
Oh,
to play it for
you
the
willed into
intended
existence, Mr.
cost,
Plus.
but yeah, drawing the seal after discarding Battering Ram, a little bit of an embarrassment of riches. The Draven player having a hard time deciding what to discard there because the Battering Ram being such a big tool for this deck, didn't want to get rid of such a powerful card so early, but ultimately decided it was worth getting rid of the Battering Ram in favor of deploying the Tide Turner here early and getting 2 units on board to start trying to answer back on these point totals, as it's already 2-0 for Irelia player, but Irelia electing just to move Sneaky Deckhand back and deploy their own chosen champion and pass it back over to Draven.
Yeah, and I think solid calls from both sides. I think it just shows their experience into this matchup. It is a fairly common one. The Draven wanting to sort of establish his early board, make sure that he doesn't fall too far behind in points, especially given how close last game was. If you're too slow to start developing that board, it can certainly come back and bite you. And as for the Irelia player as well, again, we talked about it. There's not a lot of ways for Draven to try and punish this Irelia that early. You're taking a gamble that there's no Falling Stars in sideboard. Players were pretty fast with the sideboard, so I'm assuming either they knew the matchup well enough that they knew exactly what the sideboarding in, or there weren't that many sideboard changes. So if you get the Irelia out early this turn, it readies up, it gets a +1, and then you can start equipping it all the stuff it needs to run around the turn after.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this Tide Turner was actually from the sideboard, because I don't recall seeing Tide Turner in Game 1. Interesting inclusion in a Miracle deck to have Tide Turner be one of your units, and we do see actually a switcheroo as well, which I can only imagine also is out of the sideboard. So some interesting tech options to try to deal with Irelia here, but passing it back over to our Irelia player, who's got 8 runes to work with, plenty of runes to start rocking and rolling and getting this Irelia equipped nice and heavily, like you said, GA at the ready, looking like we're going to see that come down already, and then the immediate equip.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? You're playing around a potential spinning axe that would get the Tide Turner up to 5. So if you can get Irelia up to 6, it just makes it that much safer. And then now it's either a fight or flight or a rebuke that you're mostly playing around. I mean, we know there's a switcheroo, but I don't know if that's necessarily top of mind for an Irelia player when you're playing into a Draven, especially if it's not hidden, because the cost is a little bit rough. A cheeky Ride the Win. I like it.
Any Defy in hand, any kind of response to stop this from happening, looking through their hand, trying to determine if there's an answer to this. If not, just a cheeky little point on your opponent's turn, thanks to Ride the Wind, is never anything to scoff at.
Yeah. I mean, there is a defy, but the thing is, you also have Boots of Swiftness that you can use to chase if you want. So I'm curious if the Irelia player feels like that's necessary. Not to mention, again, it's now you're tapped out. Sneaky's 2, actually, so that would trade unless you buff it up. What does Irelia want to do? I feel like normally you just want to pull the Irelia back, no?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that the Defy holding it back is kind of an admittance that she needs this to get through something like she experienced in the last game with the Boff plus Rebuke, these spells, the hard bargain, opting to save it for defense to keep
Okay.
Irelia alive rather than using it more aggressively just to kill a Tide Turner. But we'll see if that extra point being accrued on their opponent's turn is going to be a big boon for this Draven, because now it's a tie game 3-3 after the score and hold from the Tide Turner, looking like we might be able to muster up enough might here to come over the top of Irelia, but Irelia does have a Defiant Dance in hand to make that math a little bit more tricky. You always got to be wary of that 1 for
Yeah.
5 that Irelia has access to.
And then it becomes a mind game at that point, because you're going to swing the Draven up, and do you actually buff it up? That's going to cost you a rune if you want to do it. So right now it's 7 swinging into 5. Did he just recycle a card?
Yep, he did. So
Okay.
we actually get to see 9.
Okay, 9 right now, but with Defy and Dance, that ends up being 7 to plus another 3, 8.
Yeah,
So
but
what's the other combat trick?
there's a spinning axe and a fighter flight at the ready for our Draven player. Which one are they electing to go with first here after Defiance Dance resolves? I'm going to decide whether or not they can get over with the spinning axe. That'll effectively neutralize the minus. Actually, yeah, we'll neutralize the minus and only net a +1, bringing us back to 10 in total. But
10 would be enough, right? Because I roll right now, so it's 4, 3, 7, 8 total. So yeah, and I like the equipping it onto the Ezreal as well. You're kind of forcing the Irelia player to say, okay, who do I kill? Normally you just want to kill the Draven, but now you kill Draven, Spinning Axe survives, and then Ezreal is actually a menace and a force to be reckoned with. Irelia will survive though, thanks to GA saving her for now, but with 2 runes up, I think you called that there was a fight or flight in hand potentially. So there are ways to try and protect this Ezreal, and I think do you pull back the Tide Turner there, or do you just say, okay, I don't care which side you kill? I feel like, yeah, keeping your might alive and building your board is actually really critical to this Draven right now.
yeah, stack deck in hand as well here. Could just opt to play that now, and now that they have nothing to defend with this fight or flight, but could also decide to hide this fight or flight. Actually,
Ooh.
just going to deploy it ahead of time.
That is such an interesting choice, because we understand why Irelia does that. Or wait, he's
But now that Defy we were
ah.
talking so much about earlier is going to come out and say, no, thank you. Stay right where you are, Ezreal. I want that. I want you and that spinning axe off the board.
Fair enough. I think Draven will be okay with losing the Ezreal. The Spinning Axe probably hurts a little bit more, because he's got another Ezreal back in base for now. Wait, was that another fight or flight?
I
No,
believe
that's the
that
switcheroo.
was the switcheroo. Yeah, the switcheroo is now hidden. So something that we'll have to see whether or not Irelia is prepared for. More than likely, she's anticipating it to be fight or flight. So the switcheroo could be a big surprise that ends up blowing the Irelia player out if they're not
Wow.
prepared.
That was an Adaptatron Irelia pulled out. Now that has to be Cybertech coming in to deal with the seals and potentially Spinning Axe as well. So there is a line here where you attach it to the Adaptatron, get it strong enough, move it up, and then swing the Irelia, I guess. Like, okay, no, we're just going to buff the Irelia with the boots. Respectable.
Yeah. I was wondering whether or not we would try to go for an exact trade here to essentially wipe the switcheroo's relevance from the board, but instead going to come in over the top and now enable the switcheroo to get the Irelia to Oh no, the flash is actually
Yep.
here to stop the Irelia from getting targeted by the switcheroo thanks to moving back to the base, and that will also net them a draw by moving the Stellacorn herder. So good play, good utilization of flash, and now Irelia gets to walk right back in and take care of that Draven and, or sorry, that Ezreal and the spinning axe.
Yeah, and with the target from the flash, that's a +1. Readying it up as well from the Irelia legend is another +1. Targeting it was a +1. So even with the switcheroo, the Irelia is going to be more than strong enough to overcome those numbers, get up there, and score again. But this time, Mr. Plus, there's no GA on this Irelia. There's no more combat tricks. We know that from Irelia. And for the Draven, I think you just chase the Irelia. You know, like you kind of have to go for it. And even if you end up losing both those units, surely you just chase.
Yeah, we do see Bryn here in the hand for our Draven player. So whether or not it is too early for a Bryn here is kind of remains to be seen. I'm not. Oh, it actually only have
Doesn't have enough
5
runes.
runes after all of that. So not even able to deploy it. Now using stack deck to find something else to add to the hand here. We got Rebuke being the decision, obviously a key card in trying to deal with Irelia. So adding Rebuke to the hand, but at this low of a rune pool, it's a little bit risky to try and use a Rebuke here this early on, and I'm not sure that Draven is willing to risk it, especially with that not so fast in hand for the Irelia. Of course, he is not aware of that, but without the insurance of the hard bargain that he had in game 1, a little bit scary to come in here and sacrifice 3 runes on a Rebuke, but looks like
He's gonna
that's
do it, I
what
think.
he's going for.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. You know, that is a bit of a shocker. You're burning so much because of the deflect cost as well in order to kick that Irelia out. And this is where, you know, props to the Irelia player, Scarlett, who we are assuming Scarlett. She has perfect RBF, Riftbound bluffing face. You cannot tell what she's thinking. And so you're thinking, okay, surely she must have a combat trick. There's 2 energy up, so I don't want to even risk throwing both bodies in. I'm just going to throw that in, try and use the Rebuke. And it ends up backfiring because the not so fast was there. We know she actually didn't have any combat tricks. She only had a way to stop a spell, and it worked.
Yeah, and there was on the flip side, Irelia was kind of banking on this not so fast working, and
Yeah.
there's still 2 runes over there for the Draven, so that could have been a hard bargain yet again. So both players taking some big gambles, and this time going in the favor of our Irelia player, and now bringing it up to 6 points for Irelia. They're within kill shot. They just need to figure out a way to set it up without getting taken out by Draven like they were last game, but thanks to the rune destruction from that Rebuke play, they're only coming up to 5 runes on the following turn, and currently that's not enough to play any of the cards in hand. I believe I saw just Bryn here, Ferris Forerunner, and another high-costed card, I think the Battering Ram.
Yeah, Mr. Plus, if I was a younger man, if I was half an hour younger, I would say that this is Irelia's game. But after last round, after last game, we saw Draven manage to pull out literally a miracle turn. So I don't know what the line is for Draven. I feel like it's kind of done, but we'll see how this ends up cooking out. There is not going to be a Brynher. He's going to dig in with the Ezreal for now. He's going to need to be able to stop a double conquer, and he needs to kick out that Stellacorn. No bushwhack, pardon me, in hand currently. But yeah, is that a Rasa he had? No.
Did pick up a Rasa off of the Ezreal draw too, so could elect to push into the battlefield here and actually risking it, going for the Stellacorn herder and not saying you don't have a discipline, but actually just gonna scoop afterward. Just wanted to take the Stellacorn down for the road, and now we get to go to game 3. Well played once again by Irelia. This time a little bit more fortunate in not having the answers be answered in turn by the Draven at every single moment. So this is going to come down to the wire. Game 3, both players are playing the matchup really well, but it's coming down to just who's able to draw those answers and for being the one to hopefully take down the Draven menace as we go into game 3.
And for game 3, our battlefields are, it's a Sunken Temple, so card draw for the side of the Irelia. And oh, I'm blanking on the battlefield that Draven has opted for.
Yes, this is
Okay.
the battlefield that allows you to untap a gear, so getting multiple
Right.
use out of your seals in this particular deck, allowing you to tap your seal, play a called shot, move in and conquer, untap your seal, play another called shot, and make your opponent miserable as you look through the top 2 cards of your deck over and over.
Fair enough. And plus, our producer, you can't see him on screen, but he's still in our ears. He just gave us the update. That's Veil Temple was the name of that battlefield there. So yeah, but as you described, Mr. Plus is exactly what it does. It also allows you to detach Spinning Axe if need be. To be fair, so far this series, I don't think there's been a time where detaching the Spinning Axe would have been the call, but it is an option. The players look like they're really fast and ready. Like, given how short that break was, I'm assuming they didn't sideboard, didn't need to make any changes. But it looks like the judges were slowing them down for a second. No, again, not
Yeah.
sure what the judges are doing. If anything, hey guys, can we call slow play on the judges?
Yeah, the pace of play is not actually being dictated by the players. It's the judges holding them back. So let's see who gets the early points this game, if there's going to be yet again another sneaky deckhand starter for our Irelia player. There it is. Sneaky
Oh my
deckhand,
goodness.
starting hand, all 3 games. You'll love to see it. That's the recipe for success for our Irelia player. To get ahead of this Draven, and no thoughts about it. Immediately snap sneaky deckhand turn 1.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, it is worth noting that this last game, despite the sort of pace of play that has been fairly rapid for both these players, it is a miracle deck. So they are left with just under 12 minutes to play this third game. And the Irelia player, she's been often ripping ahead in terms of points early on. So if the game does bog down, I feel like it's going to favor this Irelia a little bit. And having that sneaky deckhand right from the rip as well just kind of supports that idea that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think that the point scoring rule of being ahead by 2 points in overtime in order to secure the W is definitely an interesting change, making it 2 points ahead rather than 1. And it does kind of lend itself to the faster deck winning in these time scenarios, and that has been the name of the game for our Irelia player both games, is trying to play it as fast as possible. And that
Yeah.
is definitely going to be the case once again here, as we see the sneaky deckhand, obviously, but now Draven
Wow.
trying to answer it immediately by throwing in the traveling merchant and buffing it up potentially with something, or no, just going
Nope.
for the trade.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like the call there from the Draven, because on one hand you could have gone to the other side to the Veil Temple to try and keep pace with the score, but I actually just think trading early is kind of fine, and then you've already got the card draw. You're just looking to go for that miracle turn. Irelia, once again, with what we've been seeing all 3 games in this match, just trying to get that Irelia out as fast as possible. Forget about the setup. She has been the win con for this deck. And once again, like, as soon as you can get it out, the sooner you can, the better. There is a boost of swiftness in the hand for Irelia, so that's going to be one way to accelerate. I believe there's an On Guard and a Defy as well, so you have tools to potentially keep her alive.
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty good pace of play from both players, so hopefully you're going to get this game to be as close to a natural conclusion as possible and not having to rely on that 2-point swing in time. But
Yep.
we're going to have to definitely play the fastest we've ever played if we want that to be the case, and that is difficult to do on the side of a Miracle deck who is explicitly showing why that is the case right now, as you have to contemplate, what do I have? What am I looking at? What am I going to see? What do I need? And it just happens turn over turn. So this is slowing the game down, and definitely not what our Irelia player has been doing. They've been playing lightning fast every turn. The decision points, maybe not as many, but definitely still making them rather quickly and knowing exactly what they want to be doing in this matchup.
Yeah, and it's not like the Draven player wants to play slow right now. Both players are currently sat at 6 wins, 2 ties. And now I don't know what the standings are or what the cutoff mark is, but I've got to imagine that 6 wins is not enough to be able to make it into the top 16. So they really want the win here. The 2 draws are, I feel like 1 draw is fine. 2 draws puts you in a almost untenable position, and 3 draws, I don't think you're gonna make Yeah, it'd have to be a very weird bubble for you to make it in top 16 with 3 draws.
Yeah, if the cutoff for top 16 is X2, which I'm not sure that it is for a what is this 12 round tournament or 12 rounds of Swiss, then being at 2 draws as opposed to 2 losses does guarantee you that spot. But
Okay.
here we don't really know the layout of this just yet. And back to the actual game here, we just saw a defy onto a hidden fighter flight to keep that Draven right where he was and take it out by the Irelia, going up to 2, leaving the Irelia a little bit exposed, not bringing it back to base to safety as she has been every other game that we've seen so far, but a little bit limited on resources in hand. Looks like only 3 cards in hand. No, 4 cards in hand. We see an On Guard. It looks like a Draven Audacious, Fighter Flight, and a Defy at their disposal.
Yeah, and as long as the Irelia has the On Guard, I guess she feels fairly comfortable with it up there. Because after all, what's the worst that could happen? You spinning axes, and you meet with the On Guard. Well, it's a little bit shy, I guess, in terms of dealing with that. But Ezreal also is lacking a little bit of damage right now. Spinning axe versus the On Guard still favors the Irelia in this particular trade.
Yeah, and the hard bargain banked up and ready to try and stop Irelia from doing anything too tricky, but Defy in turn ready to respond. So it is going back to what you said, this constant mind game of who is going to make the first leap and gamble on whether or not their opponent has the answer to the answer.
And for the Draven, we were saying that, hey, that turn 1 offering that trade, he's trying to slow down the game, but it looks like, yep, okay, I was going to say, if he swings, that's really aggressive. But no, he's still kind of taking it slow, still trying to build the board. I love the Ferris Forerunner to come through. It allows you to potentially trade with that Irelia more than once, try and blow any sort of healing or protection she has in one turn, and then swing again for the next. But playing that also does mean 1 rune, you're not scared of this Draven. That Traveling Merchant is up a creek with no paddle, and I believe that's, if I recall correctly, that was the Boots of Swiftness. So Irelia just going to swing right on across, take that out, and yeah, for 0 runes right now, the Irelia is going to pull ahead.
And 2, seeing that Draven Audacious in the hand of our Irelia player is an avenue that the Irelia has to score some extra points outside of the standard structure of 2 points a turn. They might be able to charm up a unit at some point and get an extra point somewhere that might be the difference maker in having a 2-point lead if we do go into time. Still 6 minutes just about left in the round, playing at a decent enough pace that they might be able to finish this out in turns regardless, but looking like both players are trying to pick up the tempo a little bit.
Fizz being picked up by Draven in this particular case. I'm trying to remember if there's any significant spells that have been played by Draven or discarded by Draven that might matter. I don't believe so at this point in the game. Going back to your point about the purple Draven, though, that the Irelia has, you kind of mentioned sort of the overtime rule, and I think it's going to be very critical because a lot of times with overtime, the most you can score is 2 points, right? So as long as you're within plus or minus 1 point of your opponent, the draw is the most likely outcome. But Draven breaks that sort of paradigm where being able to score that 3rd point could be all you need to get ahead there. Okay, so Fizz is played. What spells did he have?
Might just be doing stack deck here. Yeah, it looks like just a stack deck coming out. Very often deployed off of the Fizz effect just to essentially turn Fizz into a draw card, more or less. But seeing a stack deck, a seal, and a Ride the Wind off the top, now trying to decide what to do in terms of their selection. They do have Ferris Forerunner in the back, ready to move up and take the fight to this Irelia. Did not get to see what the hidden card is over here at the Sunken Temple for our Irelia player, though.
I want to say it was a fight or flight, but I'm not 100% either on that. I'm going to admit, I've been horrible trying to track what's in everybody's hand. I've been more focused on what's in the Draven's hand for the most part, just because I feel like the Irelia is generally feeling quite strong. There we go, Veil Temple ridding the seal once again, but it looks like it was the right the wind picked up. So Ferris Forerunner moving up to offer combat 6-5.
Yeah, the Ride the Wind, interestingly enough, is probably here in the event that this is a fight or flight hidden here, would be able to then ride the wind, the Ferris Forerunner back up into Sunken Temple to get another shot at this, but on guard being a 1 for 3 on this Irelia Fervent is a huge buff. I mean, we see the very
There you go.
card that is being deployed right now being a two energy, 1 power cost for 3 buff. Having just 1 energy give you a +3 buff on the Irelia is huge, and a lot of the reason why Irelia is able to have so much success is just having this unit that is getting overrate stats on cards that you would already want to be playing, in the same way that Draven is so good because he's getting extra cards for playing the game in the way that you would already want to be playing. So you're definitely seeing what makes these 2 decks the top of the meta here, and the Fight or Flight is going to be deployed, and looking like she is selecting her own Irelia.
Yeah, which surprises me because given what we're seeing in her hand, not so fast Draven Defy, there's nothing to pump up Irelia next turn. So with just sort of the ready up, she'll be at 6 effectively. So that's still not going to overcome that Ferris Forerunner, and I'm surprised that she's just going to seed this one and still not willing to have an answer necessarily to deal with Ferris Forerunner on that side. Thinking long and hard right now about the hard bargain, especially since it was the Irelia chosen. Do you really care enough to hard bargain as a Draven right now?
It looks like does not want to use the hard bargain here,
Yeah.
surprisingly enough, even though it would have more than likely netted them a kill onto the Irelia with no GA in sight to keep it alive. That could have been very well the door shut on this game, but instead keeping the hard bargain for another day, and now tying the game up 4-4, opting to pay the 1 to draw a card off of Sunken Temple. Let's see what the top deck holds for our Irelia player and whether or not it'll give her enough gas to come in and get over a 9 might Ferris Forerunner.
Yeah, and I feel like that's been one of the issues with this Draven is I feel like he's very conservative. He's almost like too scared to kind of go in there. Like we know she had Defy, so hard bargain would have just been defied in that particular situation. But yeah, I kind of think that he should have been potentially chasing that Irelia harder. Try and kill her. Even if it gets defied, so be it. At least you burnt a rune out of the Irelia, derammed her, whereas hard bargain, you're kind of fine with the cost there. It's just the power cost. You're not deramping yourself to make anything happen. And now over to the Irelia, she's just offering a trade with that Stellacorn. I think that was Switcheroo that got hidden, which is kind of funny because if that is Switcheroo, it does nothing in the situation.
Yeah, a perfect answer to Switcheroo here. And also, notably, we are in our last minute of regular time, so this is going to go to turns. And at tie game right now, that means we are looking at the win condition being the +2 points more than likely. With only 2 turns left, it would take perfect scoring from both players to get to that 8-point threshold, which seems a little bit of a stretch here at the current junction.
You know what? There's always Draven. There's also purple Draven's there, Mr. Floss. I believe it could make a potential difference. 20 seconds left, though, and it looks like it will be ending on this Draven's turn. So that would be... that would mean in overtime, this game would end with Irelia having the last chance. For now, Right the Win being used. And is this where Defy comes out?
I would beg, or I would bet that it is the case that they've been waiting for to utilize this Defy, because Ride the Wind here would be very, very backbreaking.
Yep, it is going to stop that for now. And Draven didn't have the runes now to hard bargain because that was all he kind of had. Trade being offered here. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, no?
Yeah, it looks like time has already been called, so probably just going over with judges how time rules are about to work. And now that we know that we are in turns, just going to proceed with the cleanup here as the trade is gone through, and the switcheroo did in fact accomplish nothing as they were at the same might. And now it's on our Irelia player to see whether or not they can get over the 9 might present over with this Ferris Forerunner having the spinning axe equip. We could also see an attempt at conquering the Veiled Temple and then establishing the Draven there, and then trying to win a combat with it to get the final point they need to get the point lead for victory, but instead going to start us off with a Defiant Dance, selecting the Pharaoh's Forerunner, bringing it back down to only 7, putting our Irelia up to 9 currently. Yes, or
Yep.
10 after the selection. So more than enough to get over our Pharaoh's Forerunner. So Spitting Axe going to the bin at the start of the next turn, but 2 mechs going to the base for their trouble. So having 9 might present in the base going into the next turn to mount some kind of offensive. Ooh, the Sneaky
Wow.
Deckhand. Wow, a great card to draw here to get that extra point and not have to expose the Irelia here.
But here's the problem. And okay, so this is why I was a bit surprised that this was the sort of order of operations. I thought they'd swing over to Veil Temple, ready it up with the Irelia Legend, and then swing with Boots of Swiftness to conquer 2. Because, yeah, now the problem is they're not reading Irelia. She is up on the field. But Sneaky Deckhand offers a chance for Draven to get another draw, right? You just move both two units up, whether it be a Fizz and a mech or 2 mech tokens. You win, or 1 would be enough, really. 2 if you're just being careful to make sure there's no discipline or anything. And then you get to draw another card. And then kind of see how it goes for the Irelia. But yeah, for now, we'll have to see how it goes. Draven at a disadvantage. This is turn 2. So there'll be 1 more turn after this. Draven needs to score 2 points.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure who was declared turn 0 for the 0, 1, 2, 3 here. So if this is Draven's last turn of the game, then that is actually that puts our Irelia player in a likely position to be able to win, as they're already 2 points ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's showing turn 1 up at the top, 1 out of 3 at the top, but that would be wrong. I mean, like we saw it start counting up during the Draven player's turn. So, well, that would be really unfortunate if they're counting this as turn 1 from the Draven side. Yeah, because then he actually has a chance onto this. It really does change the sort of nature of things. Digging for now. Oh, he did start putting in falling stars. Okay, he just didn't see them before this.
So they did come in from the sideboard, but is that going to actually do anything at this point? More than likely going to just have to put this falling star back to the bottom. Sorry, sideboard tech, you didn't actually get to do anything this game. Now I'm just going to pick up a Rasa and another called shot, and let's go back into the top 2 and play another called shot.
Okay, I do have confirmation. This is round 1. Sorry, turn 1. So he managed to pass right before timer ran out.
All right, that might have been what we saw. The discussions were being had with the judges there as timer went down to 0. So
Yeah.
with this being 1, he does have 1 more turn after this. So able to maybe piece together an offensive to win the game, as he's assembling his pieces now, playing a bushwhack into a more than likely another called shot.
Oh my goodness.
First going to move it up the mech, take out the Sneaky Deckhand over at the Veiled Temple, netting him his first conquer of the turn, going up to 5. Now he's got to figure out how to get over this Irelia. Irelia sitting at only 6 might with only 2 runes up in hand. No protection from something like a GA or a Zanya's. So should he be able to get the might high enough to get over any kind of combat tricks this Irelia has, that could actually see us buy the victory back from the jaws of defeat for our Draven player.
Oh, and with a blood rush as well, I think you'd feel so much more comfortable attempting this. But does he want the battering ram? I think he's trying to work this one out in terms of how it's gonna go. Again, that 2 runes, this is kind of a bluff, right? We know what her hand's not so fast, and I can't recall what the other card was, but it wasn't a combat trick. So if he swings, he'll get it. But he's been so, it feels like, scared that, yeah, there we go. With the Rasa, surely he swings now.
Yeah, and then the decision between the Blood Rush and the Battering Ram is basically the decision point of 1 might, as with Ezreal, the Blood Rush would repeat for free, being a 1 for 4, but if they're able to play enough cards here, which it seems like they're more than likely able to, the Battering Ram is a 1 for 5, and also with haste, thanks to the Bushwhack that was deployed earlier. So clear choice for our Draven player who was able to actually just utilize the Rasa at the end of at the end of everything to push in and take out the Irelia, and now Irelia sitting on an empty board and a tie game. It looks like our Draven player found the recipe to come back and take this game away from Irelia, unfortunately. But one turn left for our Irelia player. Maybe they can pull something out with that Draven Audacious. Let's see. The Boots of Swiftness are there. We need something else to select the Draven. Only going to have 8 runes to do so.
Oh, that's going to be super rough as well, because most Irelia decks only won a run-up with the Irelia. Oh, the other card was the Draven, so...
Yeah, the Draven Audacious is in
Okay.
hand. There is a Boots of Swiftness. So, if we can get something like a pump spell that can enable us... It would have to be specifically on guard. We would have to see Draven played, on guard, restand it, move it in, conquer, tap the last energy to ready Irelia so that you can then equip Boots of Swiftness and then come over for the double conquer.
Wait, you can't ready Irelia. That Veil Temple is
No, that's Aurelia's effect. Aurelia can pay,
right, on
pay
the Conquer,
1
yeah.
on conquer to restand.
Right.
So it would have to be top deck on guard here. And
Well,
even
then...
that would probably not be enough. Oh, Ride the
Wait,
Wind also
yeah,
gets
that
you
works. Okay,
But
there's still 2 runes on
there.
Draven,
How much might do we have over here? 6, 5, 11
11.
might. That's too much for our Draven Audacious to get over.
Yeah, and unlike the Irelia, he doesn't have the +1 every time you choose him, so he does need the pump spell. And again, like, you've just got to be so conscious right now of what this Draven player might have in hand. If there's a spinning axe, everything just kind of goes out the window at this point. But you've got to take the risk. Now, if Draven does go up and swings into... I think you just start with dealing with that mech, because it gives you a card draw, right? You win combat first, you go up to 7, you then draw the card for the Conquer. And then you pray for a Defiant Dance, I guess. And maybe that's what he was checking, the Draven player was checking the trash for. How many Defiant Dances have been played this game?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that the amount of cards in hand for Draven means that even if Aurelia can piece this together to go up here and make something happen, there's probably an answer just waiting in the wake with those 2 runes up.
Yeah. We're going to see again. There's a not so fast. Draven right now is sat on, what is that, 7 might? So you're not afraid of a spinning axe. You're worried about things like a, I guess, rebuke would be the biggest fear here. But yeah, with the not so fast, actually, this is fairly comfortable for Irelia.
Yeah, the Irelia, though, needs those 2 runes, I believe, for Ride the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
Or Defiant Dance, either one. Yeah, something that will enable her to ready this Draven once again. But like I said, one of these runes is going to have to be spent in restanding Aurelia on Conquer, even if she wants the opportunity to be able to ready this Draven again to try to send it across.
Yeah, and you're literally looking for a top deck Defiant Dance. I think that's the only way. Even with that, I'm just trying to do the math. The Draven's at a 7. It goes up to a 9. Oh, you'd only trade even on the other side.
Found a Fight or Flight. And that's the last 2 runes, so nothing left for Draven, but the only thing that... Oh, could go for Ride the Wind here.
Then you don't have enough to conquer the other side, so it's a draw or bust. And it looks like Scarlett has decided, no, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to try and... Yeah, I'm not even going to try and force the draw. We're just going to call it at this point. I think. I actually don't know. The coach just said, yeah, it looks like she conceded.
Yeah, I believe Draven still had 1 more turn left, as we said, and just determined there in the end. So even if she was able to come out alive at the end of that turn, Draven more than likely would have closed out the game in the following turn. So